Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. We're back in our prospective homes after last week's episode being together for the first time, which was incredible. How are you guys doing?
Awesome.
Doing great. All right. So before we get started, we want you to like, share our page, follow our page, Rounding Third Baseball Podcast on Facebook. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and get alerts of when we go live. We have a very packed show here tonight. We're going to release our first round matchup results, and we have a score update for you guys that turned in brackets. So we'll cover that, and then we have some stuff at the end of the show too that we'll cover. So pretty full show tonight, and we'll get right into it. So leading off, we're going to start with the CBA update. They met for 7 days straight, right? They haven't taken a day off. However, we're still sort of far apart. There are some things that we have agreed on, correct? Like the draft lottery. I think, is it the bottom 6 teams?
Yeah, bottom 6 teams.
6, right?
Bottom 6 teams get the draft lottery, yep. And then I just saw today that the people that, or the 2 people that end in the Rookie of the Year voting, 1 and 2, they get a full year of service time. So if they come up halfway through the year and they finish second, they'll get a full year of service time, which, I mean, was kind of what they were pushing for.
Yeah, because the players are pushing hard for that Super 2 exception to go up from 22% to 35%. So more players would be arbitration eligible sooner.
Right.
And then the league is countering with, we don't want to do that across the board, but if you've got a guy that comes up that is in the, do they have to win it, or they just have to be in the top 3?
I think it's the top 3. Top 2. That's what it is. Top 2.
Top 2.
Then they'll let that accrue as a service year, and that way it helps some people, some players potentially move into that Super 2 bracket that might not have otherwise. But that's a big deal because these guys could effectively go to free agency, or at least be arbitration eligible sooner, potentially going to free agency sooner as well. So it could mean a lot of money to some of these younger players earlier.
And that's all the union wants. They just want the younger players to be paid sooner instead of waiting, the 6 years or whatever it is to hit free agency.
And then the circuit breaker for them there, with teams play that whole, like, we won't call you up until May 1st to avoid the year of service time. If you come up on May 1st and kill it, then you still get your service year, even though the team tried to hose you on it. So, and Chris Bryant's a great example of that. He would have come up in May and earned his service year.
Right. Yeah.
Well, he won Rookie of the Year.
Right. So he would have gotten that full year.
Yeah. They sent him. You needed 172 days, and he was at 171. It's nonsense. I mean, the whole thing is. And then he challenged it at some, not like a lawsuit, but challenged it with a mediator, and the league won, which is nonsense. Like nonsense.
The rules are clear. The rule might be stupid, but it's clear.
I just, my whole thing with it, like I get 89, 90 days, whatever it's been since the lockout started. I get it's not new, but like it starts now, like the league put today or the commissioner put today as the deadline, right? And it's frustrating because it's like it's like, how big's your yacht gotta be? Like, you guys are all fucking billionaires. Like, and them saying, oh, well, we're, prepared to miss a month of baseball. And I think I read somewhere either yesterday or today that, it's because the first maybe a little bit more than a month doesn't really impact their revenue. Because as long as they play a certain number of games on TV, they're still more than breaking even. So, like, them sacrificing a month of baseball isn't really doing anything. But you're going to then threaten the players to say, well, if you don't play 162 games, you're not getting your full year salary. But you guys are going to get your full year, essentially, if you play, if you only miss 3 weeks, because the TV contract's going to kick in. Like, it's frustrating because it's all about greed. It's always been about greed, and it's always been about money. And, I get that it's a business, but there's 1,200 Major League Baseball players out there that if you take away those top 1,200 players and you make the next 1,200 players play, baseball's going to suffer. But if you take away the owners and replace them with smart business people, the game's not going to suffer. So it's very clear that the players are much more important. Like, let the players give them a little bit of what they want. I'm not saying you got to cave and give them absolutely everything. Like, it is a negotiation. But I mean, how big's your yacht got to be? Like, just let them play baseball.
I said earlier, I was just like, I just want the players to be like, you know what? Like, we'll do everything you want. We got it. And then they just go to the field and they just sit in the dugout and then walk off the field. Like, they don't even take the field. Like, after a while, the league's going to be like, all right, like, we're being ridiculous. Like, something has to change. You know, like, I don't know, man. Like, there's just no give. Like you said, the whole yacht thing. Like, it's
disingenuous. And I don't think Manfred, the commission owners, they try and sell you on this, like, idea that owning a Major League Baseball team isn't as profitable as regular people think it is, right? Like, they sell you this, oh, you know, we barely break even. It's not as profitable as you think it is. Like, I'm not like, I don't own a business, unfortunately, but like, I'm pretty sure that since like 2001, it's pretty out there that since 2001, you know, all 30 Major League Baseball clubs together were combined $15.4 billion. That's what they were worth. Now, 2022, it's over like 200 billion or like whatever the ridiculous number is. So it's like, don't sit there and tell me you're not making money. Like, dude, you can't. Like, I just refuse to believe that you're not making money out of it. You own the team.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's challenging because when you look at what these teams make, and the Atlanta Braves, you know, their financials are public because they're owned by Turner. You know, and the world wanted to freak out about the Braves made $100 million last year in profit, which is not entirely true because it's all in-house. It's Turner Broadcasting. It's all kind of melded together, so it's not a great read. And their payroll is only like $140 million. So it's not like they're like a big time spender. They're a mid-market team, typical mid-market team. And when you break it all down, you know, they might have made, when all was said and done, $40 or $50 million, which, hey, that's nothing to sneeze at. But at the same time, for organizations that are this big, you know, that's one more contract. If you raise a luxury tax $20 million, like they're saying they're going to do, you know, that begins to eat up most of your operating income, which is what you're paying the bills with and paying yourself with. So are these teams worth a ton? Absolutely. But what's valuable is the rights, the name, the ballpark, the logo. It's these things as operating companies aren't stellar. A lot of these teams don't make any money. Plenty of them do. But at the end of the day, you've got two sides right now that are so entrenched, so far apart, see baseball very differently. And they can't seem to find middle ground. And in some cases, like the distance they have to go is laughable. Like they're never gonna close a gap there unless some third party comes in and makes a decision. But you have two sides that have very different ideologies around what baseball is and should be. And I don't know how you close that gap. Regardless of who's making, I mean, Max Scherzer makes more money than the Braves. I mean, if you want to go down the road of who's making money, Max Scherzer by himself is going to make what an organization makes. This whole thing is nuts. These guys are all making so much money playing a kid's game, and all they want to do is haggle over, you know, in theory, what's another $10 million a ball club? Like, right. Does that really change anybody's life in baseball? Does that ruin the owners or change the players? Not really. I mean, we're not. These are big numbers, but when you're spread across, you know, 25 guys, 3 or 4 layers of minor league baseball, entire staffs, it's, you know, what these guys create is massive, but they're literally haggling over stuff that in 5 years nobody's going to remember.
Right, but I mean, I think from a player's perspective, like, I think the players are the ones that I think have more of a gripe in the sense of like, we want the league to come towards us a little bit. Like, mainly let's put the money part aside for a second. Mainly when it comes to the big thing we were just talking about a minute ago was, you know, finagling with service time for these younger players that, you know, what is it, 6 or 7 years before you're arbitration eligible, you know, and it's days of service. So if you're in the minors, those days don't count. It's days of service. And I was reading something today that unnamed, now people they didn't want their names on it because we're in negotiation. So I take that for what it is. But, you know, an unnamed front office person that's still in front office in Major League Baseball essentially was saying, yeah, like, you see them as loopholes, right? Like, we, the fans, are reading about the loophole that general managers are using. General managers are outwardly admitting, yeah, like, we don't see it as a loophole. We see it as a tactic. Like
Right.
we negotiated the last CBA that then allowed us to hold people back. Like, tell me that that's not. And this is why I think the players have a gripe. This is why current players have been saying for the past month, good faith negotiation isn't happening. That's a prime example of it. That's an example. Like, if you're going to negotiate the last CBA with in your head thinking, hey, this is how I'm going to fuck with service times, but not tell people that that's why you're putting that clause in there, that's disingenuous. And I think that's where the players, to me, have a gripe. Money aside, like, I get that. My whole thing with the money is I hear what you're saying, Harrison, but if you're going to loop all this stuff and mash it all together, with the Braves being an example, and it's the stadium, and it's the logo, and it's the rights, and it's the broadcasting company, if you're going to loop it all together, you can't then strategically go, well, that doesn't count to the money that I'm making because it's not. Well, no, you looped it all together. Like, you're combined to say that your worth of a franchise is X number of dollars. Well, then you have to count it all together when you're counting the money at the end of the year. You can't take it separately and say, well, the players didn't have anything to do with that. Of course they did. They're playing the game.
Right.
So
for sure.
I just think, so I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot that goes on. The money thing, I could go either way on, because I agree that, like, that amount of money spread over that amount of people, this, that, or the other, it's really not as much per person. So I get that, but it's some of these other things, the disingenuous negotiating and the screwing with player service times. I mean, Major League Baseball players spend their entire lives, their entire childhood, their entire lives at that point working their way up to make a major league roster. And you're going to have some guy that essentially bought his way into a multi-billion-dollar country club is going to tell me that I have to wait an extra year because he doesn't want to pay me sooner? Like, that's trash. Like, that's the disingenuous part. Like, these guys, their entire lives have been working for this. Like Chris Bryant, the example we brought up. Chris Bryant should not have had to go through what he had to go through. And I think that's what needs to come.
No, and the Cubs even publicly discussed what they did with Chris Bryant. I mean, Theo Epstein explained exactly what they were doing and why they were doing it. There is absolutely no secret that he had a killer spring training, and Theo basically said, we got to send him down until May 1st. We'll see him then. The fan base was pissed, but it's what made the most sense for the organization. So, I mean, you look at the Red Sox, look at the Yankees. These teams make more on NESN and Yes than they make on the ball clubs. They basically spend everything they make on the salary and the luxury taxes, make all their money on the media, and call it a day. When you go to these other like lesser market teams, the Pittsburgh Pirates don't have a regional sports network. You've got these very, very different markets and different ownership and different opportunities given where you are. But you've got this collective group of owners sitting in very different seats trying to negotiate a single CBA, which to me is insane. And then on top of it, you've got players who do have some gripes. You're 100% right. There is some stuff in the old CBA that's bad, but why the hell did they agree to it back then? Like, did nobody see that problem coming? Like, that literally the year after they agreed to the CBA, they were already friggin' with service time. It's like, I honestly think right now, both sides are so entrenched on some stuff and they're pandering with some really stupid points, and they're not just calling it what it is. Here's what really irks us. Here's what we're pissed about. Let's just tackle those issues. Let's not frig around with the luxury tax and this threshold and that threshold. Let's go after what's really wrong and close those loopholes, play some baseball so you guys can all make some money.
Yeah. They also threw out that the league wants a 14-team playoff system.
Right.
I mean, how do like that has nothing to do with the money, nothing.
Right.
I mean, it kind of does,
well,
right?
Does.
Because
Does.
playoff games creates money.
It absolutely does.
It makes the TV contracts worth more money.
Right. So okay, I take it back. It does.
Huge.
Think about this. ESPN had the sole rights to the wild card round. Right. So we talk about 14 teams. I mean, that there is money involved in that. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, do we like that expanded playoff format though? Like,
no, you'd be playing till friggin' December.
I mean, I'm okay with it.
I mean, but I just don't know how you fit all the games in. And not only that, but what now you've got situations where players are getting shut down earlier in September to get ready for the playoff push because they're gonna have to make that many more starts. You got relievers pitching that many more innings. You're gonna have more injuries. The season's already really damn long. But the only point I'll make to the Players Association, and I think both sides are horrendously guilty here, Major League Baseball players make more money on average than any sport out there. So think about that for a second. The average major leaguer is making more money than any other professional athlete. And these guys are still standing there pissed about the situation.
Salary cap.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's not even a cap on the table.
Salary cap. But you're looking at Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers just shelled out $325 million to Corey Seager. I mean, that is going to make the average salary for the Texas Rangers on itself go up.
Roof.
Sure.
Right.
But the other Texas Rangers players are not making any more money.
No.
Right.
No, so just look at the Kansas City Chiefs. You got Mahomes making $40 million, and half the other guys are making less than the major league minimum. I mean,
right. But
that's true in all sports.
It is, but the salary cap puts a limit on what you can pay. Like Patrick Mahomes making $40 million a year is a lot of money, and it eats up most of the salary cap for the Kansas City Chiefs. But if the NFL didn't have a salary cap, Patrick Mahomes would be making $100 million because there's no salary cap.
Absolutely.
So that's, to me, that's why I think the Major League Baseball average salary is higher than any other sport, because you can hand out $325 million contracts to one or two players.
It's crazy.
And that's my point. You know, as a major league baseball player, you have an opportunity to make way more money than your peers in any other professional sport. There is no cap, and you're spreading all that money across 25 guys, not 53. It's the amount these guys make compared to their peers is significantly higher.
Yeah.
Okay. In 2019, the average baseball player was making more money than they're making now. But yet we're seeing $300 million contracts increase to Corey Seagers, to Bryce Harper's, to these guys. But yet the average baseball player is making 8% less in 2021 than they were making in 2019. Yep. So owners are saying, okay, we're only going to, like, there's no salary cap, but they're going to pay higher to one or two players, and they're going to start cutting back on the rest of the league.
Right.
So the most of the baseball players are getting screwed in this. Like the Corey Seagers aren't.
No.
Right. They said like the top 80 or the bottom 85% of the league was getting paid shit compared to the top 15%. Like you're just saying, like, these guys are signing $40 million a year contracts, and then everybody else is making league minimum.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is the same in every other sport. That's why you've got to work off the average. But you've got Major League Baseball players. They've got no salary cap. They're guaranteed contracts. Go find another sport with that. Where they're 100% guaranteed, and 9 times out of 10 also insured behind that. I mean, these guys have a pretty good gig. They need to close some loopholes so that they don't have some of this goofy stuff handled, or this goofy stuff that gets that they get screwed by. But ultimately, they've got a really good gig, and their peer group would probably love to see something similar in the sport they're playing in.
Yep. So Brian Sawyer makes a good point. He says shorten the season, expand the playoffs. So I mean,
yeah. That
would kind of get rid of that September, right? I mean, start the playoffs in beginning or mid-September. Take out the September woes. The Red Sox worst month in team history.
Take out a couple weeks.
Septembers. Yeah.
Take out a couple weeks and add in another round of the playoffs.
I mean, sure. If it's going to bring more people to the game and more exciting games in the playoffs, then I'm all for it. And I mean, he's right. I mean, 162 games is
what?
It's a crazy amount.
I mean, you look at the NFL this past year; they took the salary cap down and added a game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but the salary cap, they took it down this year.
It'll go back up.
Knowing that it's going back up already for the next 3 years. That's already been. They already know that.
Yeah, it's a percentage of revenue, and because of the COVID year was down.
Yeah, it was a COVID reaction.
But what a terrible time to stuff an extra game in there, and then take the cap down.
Yeah. But so to sum it up, they've met for 7 straight days. There's a lot of stuff has happened, but nothing has happened. And the season is in jeopardy of missing a month here. So we are, just waiting to see what happens here. But we will move on to our next segment, which we got the 5th inning. It's not really a showdown, but we are going to talk about Tommy Tanks. So Tommy White for the NC State Wolfpack here, my hometown team. This kid is flat out raking right now. It like no one has seen this. If you haven't been keeping up or you live under a rock, he has hit 9 home runs in the first 8 games of the season. Granted, he's playing colleges like Evansville, Quinnipiac.
Yeah.
He's not really playing the top ACC teams yet. We'll get into that, so we'll see how he does later on. But he has already won 2 consecutive National Player of the Week awards. He's 18 years old. He's a true freshman. I mean, this kid, you guys have seen him, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he has 29 RBIs through his first 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, granted, yes, he's played like, the bottom of the pack in terms of Division I baseball. But at the same time, he's an 18-year-old true freshman who is just terrorizing every pitcher he faces. I don't care if you're facing like the worst team over and over again. Those are like beyond video game numbers. I don't care who you're playing against.
It's nuts. That one game against Evansville, he went 5 for 6 with 3 bombs, and they won like 27-3 or something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah. What impresses me with him is that it's not just that he's hitting bombs; it's that he's hitting bombs on all pitches to all fields.
Yep.
That 3 home run game, I want to say it was a fastball, a curveball, and a changeup were the 3 pitches he hit out. 1 to left center, 1 to dead center, 1 to right center. That's what he's done. He's hit every pitch to all fields.
Yeah.
And when he faces good pitching, will he put up the same numbers? No, of course not. He won't put that up against the elite level of competition, but the guy is still going to hit for sure.
But I mean, even his outs are loud. I mean, like this kid just hits the ball hard, like harder than I've seen.
He's on the screws every time. It's unbelievable.
It's insane.
Yeah, he's like unconscious hot.
But yeah, his ACC Player of the Week stats: he hit 643 with a 688 OBP. So what? He walked once, twice.
Yeah,
but he had an OPS of 1714. I mean. Like
didn't even realize OPS could go that high.
No, dude. Like it's just insane. I mean, and like I said, it's going to be like he's got 2 multi-home run games, so he's hit more than 1 home run in 2 of the 8 games. But it'll be interesting to see when he starts playing. UNC, he gets Florida State, he gets like those programs coming in. So. But I mean, man, what a start! It's insane.
I mean, he'll cool down, right? I mean, the guy's not going to hit 680 for the whole season. Like he's going to cool down. But like, to me, like I've watched as many of the live games as I can, but it's only been a couple. Most of them have been like the highlights and whatnot.
Yeah.
But to Harrison's point, I mean, he's hitting to all fields. It's not like he's just catching some fastballs and sending them for rides. Like he's hitting everything that's thrown: off-speed pitch, fastballs, all fields. So. Yeah, he's going to cool down, but like he's going to continue to hit the ball in the screws. Yep. Like I really don't anticipate him. Like it's a streak. It's a game. It's a streaky game. I mean, you're going to have hot streaks. You're going to have cold streaks. Like that's obviously the nature of baseball.
Right.
But I'll tell you, man, I'm excited to watch him when it starts to come into league play. When he starts playing some of these good, echelon ACC teams as an 18-year-old freshman. That's the thing that blows my mind the most. The kid's a true freshman. 18 years old.
He was ranked, I saw 107th in the prospect pool, and I'm pretty sure that number has dropped significantly. He's got to be at least in the top 70 at this point, man. I mean, Jesus. It's been insane. It's like it's must see TV every time the kid steps to the plate right now.
Well, and what's too bad for him too is that he's had this hot streak. He's going to come into the tough part of the season for them. And everybody's gotten to see him hit. So now every pitcher coming in knows what they're facing, knows they've got to deal with this guy.
Right.
The scouting reports out there. He's now going to have top tier programs scheming against him for the rest of the season. And I mean, of course, will he keep up this tear? There's almost no way he could. But the guy's still going to hit. He's still going to put up numbers. But there's no hiding now. There's no surprises. No. Tommy Tanks has arrived, and he's on everybody's radar, and they're going to be game planning every at bat.
So
and I'll tell you, it's going to be a good early test. I mean, how much can this kid make an adjustment?
Right.
You know, because like you said, I mean, he's going to have to make an adjustment, and I'm excited.
But I mean, he has the protection around him in that lineup too.
Oh,
Trout Nixon's kid is in left field, and then
that's a good baseball team, dude. That's
a really good baseball team. And then Groover, he's a center fielder, right fielder. He hit a walk-off home run against Quinnipiac the other day. Like, he's got protection in that lineup. So it's not like you can just pitch around Tommy to get to somebody else because you're just going to get hurt. I mean,
right.
And they had a couple transfers from Charlotte come in, and they're breaking. They're hitting over 400 too. Like, I mean, they're going to be fun to watch. They have a lefty in the bullpen too that's absolutely filthy. He's like high 90s and just throwing cheese.
Those lefties.
Yeah, that
right.
Yeah, that lineup NC State has is loaded. Those guys, they can hit 1 through 9. Yeah. It reminds me of that Vanderbilt team from last year where, you know, you had your 9-hitter who had, 15 bombs and a 300 average.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to get to a couple games. I'm like pumped. But also staying on the college scene for a minute. Was it who's that kid? Is it from Texas or Tennessee? That kid that's throwing like 104.
Tennessee,
dude. Like, get out of here, dude.
Yeah,
no one in college has seen that.
It was his first. I think it was his first start of the year, right?
Yeah, something like that.
First
and he
start
threw
of the year,
like
and he threw. I think he had 93 or 92 pitches, and he had 15 that were triple digits. Ridiculous.
Dude,
yeah,
ridiculous.
Crazy. It's insane, but. Yeah, so I mean,
college baseball, guys, ESPN Plus, it's worth the $7, $8, $9, whatever it is, $8 a month. And with the lockout still happening and all that, like, I encourage everyone, ESPN Plus, man, check out college baseball. It's on middle of the week, and then they obviously have, when they get into league play, those will be weekend series. Those are always awesome. There's some good college baseball teams out there this year.
Yep, Texas is off to a hot start. They're ranked number 1 right now.
Texas is nasty.
And I mean, we're gonna be talking about it since we have nothing else to talk about. So, we're gonna be throwing some segments of college baseball in there until the real stuff starts. I mean, the real stuff, I guess. But I mean, we'll see.
This is going to become the rounding third college baseball podcast.
I'm fine with it. Right? I like college baseball.
I'd be okay with that. I don't mind. Absolutely. I don't mind a little ring of a metal bat now and then.
And it's not even the same ring anymore because they've made them into like a metal wooden bat. Like, it's weird. It sounds weird coming off the bat, but I miss that gold Omaha, like ping.
I miss the Copperheads and the Omahas and the DeMarini single walls and
dude.
Where you could literally kill somebody with it.
Yeah.
I don't miss the ball coming back in my head at about 200 miles an hour though.
No, those were not fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, so like I said, we'll touch base on more college stuff next week as well, and we're gonna move on to our first round of our bracket here. So we have the results. So here we go. We're gonna stop on some of the matchups, and then I do have a scoring update of the 5 entries that we got. Yes, Scott, the Omaha Gold. Yeah,
the Omaha Gold is so good.
Oh, those things were awesome, dude. You could square around a bunt and go 350 feet.
You could check swing your way to a liner in the gap.
Yeah, that was awesome. So
it was a cheat code though. I mean, you can make a great pitch as a pitcher and give up like a gap double. I'm like, well, that's bullshit. Like, what are you gonna do?
You can't do that now with these BB core bats. Like, it's a whole other animal.
No.
But yeah. All right, so we're going to cover the first round of the bracket here. Like I said, we will stop in kind of the tighter matchups. We'll explain why we went with that pick. But here we go. So our first matchup in the Ruth bracket was Babe Ruth against George Brett. Obviously, Babe Ruth. Nothing to say there.
Yep.
So Babe Ruth wins that matchup. Next matchup down, Cy Young against Yogi Berra. We went with Cy Young. I mean, that one was a little bit debatable for us, a little bit, just because Yogi's numbers are better than what people think. But I mean,
I almost, for the record,
Cy Young.
When we were going through this, for the record, I almost got the whole podcast to change.
Yep,
you did. It was close.
Almost, and it's a lot of people. I would encourage people to go look at this matchup head to head.
Yep.
Because Yogi Berra has some stats.
Yeah.
No,
And the amount of
no
perfect
no
games
slouch.
he caught. Yeah.
I was a firm Cy Young vote, and when we really broke it down and looked at this, I was like, boy, that's a lot closer than I gave him credit for.
Yeah.
I will say this. I wouldn't say I caved. Cy Young is Cy Young.
Right.
But if it was not called the Cy Young Award, Yogi Berra would be moving on to the next round. It would be. People look at Cy Young. It's called the Cy Young Award. So people, if it was called like the Roger Clemens Award or the Randy Johnson Award, like Yogi Berra would be moving on past Cy Young. I'm telling you. Go look at the numbers. Moving on.
It was a good argument. Better matchup than I thought it would be.
It was. So then we have the next matchup. We got Ken Griffey Jr. against Cal Ripken Jr. And I mean, we went with the real junior. I mean,
yeah, with the kid.
Ken Griffey Jr.
The real junior.
The kid. Yeah. This next one was a little interesting. Mike Schmidt against Lefty Grove.
Scott's already out. Busted his bracket on the second one.
Sorry, bud.
And actually, it's real quick, Nick. Brian's got a good point. Longevity stats. We had that debate on a few players.
Yeah, we did.
Where we had some players that put up stats because they played for so long. They didn't have great stats for long stretches, but they just piled up a ton of stats because of how long they played. And that we did take that into account. We looked at, really how long did players play, but also how long were they really dominant.
Yeah, absolutely. This one might be a little bit of an upset for some people. We had Mike Schmidt against Lefty Grove, and we went with the 500 home run guy. We went with Mike Schmidt here. I mean, Lefty Grove's no slouch, but this one took us a little bit too, just because the errors were completely different.
Yep.
But we were like, how would Mike Schmidt do against Lefty Grove? And we kind of were like, I think Mike Schmidt would take him deep. Was our
Mike Schmidt's the best third baseman that we've seen. He's
Oh,
the best
absolutely.
third baseman there is.
Best third baseman in history, period.
I mean, not defensively, but
even
No,
still,
overall.
10 Gold Gloves. I mean, I know Brooks Robinson had 16, but he had 10. He's not far behind.
Right. No,
Schmidt,
I agree.
Schmidt is your best overall third baseman, hands down.
Yeah,
Hands
yeah,
down.
it's not even close. Yeah. Next matchup was Ted Williams against Tom Seaver. This one was, I mean, Tom Seaver moves on if it's anybody other than Ted Williams.
Correct.
I mean, Ted Williams wins that one.
And the flip side of Brian's point about longevity, Tom Seaver was a guy who was nothing but dominant, but he was gone in 7 years.
Right.
Like, imagine what his stats would have been over a longer period of time. He didn't have longevity to help him, but damn, was he dominant when he pitched.
Yeah, absolutely. Next matchup, Roberto Clemente against Dave Winfield. Like, sorry about it.
Yep.
Like we've
R.I.P.
said
Dave.
before, Winfield was drafted by 4, professional sports leagues, which is insane. But I mean, Roberto Clemente is Roberto Clemente. And sorry, I would die before he loses to Dave Winfield. So that ain't happening.
Yeah. If this was like all-time greatest athlete, Dave Winfield might have taken it.
Yeah.
But
Bo
baseball
Jackson
player, no.
Yeah, Bo Jackson would be in there too. But
That's true. That is true.
This next one was a little bit interesting. We were on this one for a little bit. Walter Johnson against Satchel Paige.
Yeah.
So this one was crazy. I mean, Satchel Paige pitched. Talk about longevity. He pitched for like 50-something years. His last season, I think he was like 70 years old or something stupid like that. But we did in the long run, we did go Walter Johnson.
Walter Johnson
career shutouts,
110 career shutouts.
Yeah,
110.
It's stupid.
Yeah, you
And
can't really compete with that.
What's too bad about Satchel Paige is how good he was, but like statistically, you look down the stat line and kind of go, he didn't have great stats, not a ton of wins, not a ton of losses. Granted, they played short seasons and all this stuff, but but when you think about the stuff and hear the stories, and it's his is almost more about like the aura of Satchel Paige, less about the actual stats of Satchel Paige.
Walter Johnson has a 600 win percentage, and I know wins is more than just the starting pitcher, obviously, but 600.
But not when you throw 110 shutouts.
He's got well, that's true too. Yeah. He's got a 600 winning percentage, career ERA of 2.1.
Yeah.
3,500 strikeouts. I mean, it's that guy was something special back in the day.
I think he's pretty good.
Yeah. And then the last one to round out this bracket, Tony Gwynn against Whitey Ford, and we took Tony Gwynn. I mean, best contact hitter, of our generation, of 80s, 90s, like whatever. Guy never struck out. But yeah, we went Tony Gwynn with that one. to
the Tony
finish
Gwynn,
the Ruth bracket.
What was it, Nick? He was facing Smoltz,
Glavin, Maddox, and
Pedro.
He struck out three times.
300 and something.
350 something at bats, 3 strikeouts.
Yeah, insane. So that rounds out the Ruth part of the bracket. So Babe Ruth, Cy Young, Ken Griffey, Mike Schmidt, Ted Williams, Roberto Clemente, Walter Johnson, and Tony Gwynn in that first bracket. So we'll now move down to the Mays bracket. We have Mays against Wade Boggs. Again, Willie Mays. Arguably the best overall player. Then our second matchup, we got Jackie Robinson against Harmon Killebrew. Now, this one was a little bit interesting for us as well because we didn't just take stats into effect. We took everything.
Right.
And what Jackie brought to the game, we all kind of thought that he should move on instead of Killebrew. Not saying that Killebrew wasn't a hell of a ball player because we all know he was.
His stats were gross.
Insane.
That was right. That was probably the one that took us the longest kind of going back and forth on, right? We talk about longevity, right? Longevity was one. The guy played 22 years.
Yeah.
Right.
His 162 game average, 105 RBIs on average, 38 home runs on average, 139 hits.
Yeah.
He only would have averaged 256. So not like a crazy, high batting average. On base percentage of 376. So
nothing
crazy, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times led the league in home runs, 3 times led it in RBIs, 4 times led it in walks. So he was a beast in his own right. But again, he was one of those where most matchups he probably makes it through. But Jackie Robinson's a tough one.
If Jackie Robinson isn't on this list, like half the people on our list isn't on this list.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like
it's very true.
That's the impact he brought to the game for sure.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Jackie was bigger than just the baseball field.
Yeah. This next one might be the matchup of the bracket right here. Pete Rose against Greg Maddux. This one
sucked.
This one was brutal because
I hated
both of these guys deserve to move on.
100%.
Both of these, there's no way one of these guys should have a first round exit.
No,
but
never.
We did go with Charlie Hustle. We went with Pete Rose, the hit king. I don't
know how you don't.
It was hard, right?
It was hard. It was hard. It would be one thing if you had Pete Rose, the hit king, most hits all time. If Greg Maddux, and they played pretty much the same era. Maddux was a little bit after Pete Rose, but it's not like one played in the 1920s and one played now, right? They played in a similar era.
Yep.
If Greg Maddux dominated one category the way Pete Rose dominated the hit category, I think you might be able to make a better case for Greg Maddux. The hard thing with Pete Rose is over 4,200 hits.
It's insane.
That's all you need to say. That's all you need to say.
And the amount of years he played too. He played a long time as well.
Right.
Oh yeah.
All right. Next matchup, also a tough one for us. Rickey Henderson against Frank Robinson. Now, okay, I'll just announce it. We went with Rickey Henderson. But before people get all upset about this, we know how great of a player and how much of an impact Frank Robinson made on the game. MVP
for the record, my bracket
leagues.
has Frank Robinson. Those of you that are going to send hate, send it to those two because my bracket had Frank Robinson.
My email is idon'tcarewhatyoutthink@gmail.com. But we get that, MVP in both leagues, manager, again, I hate to have it a first round exit, but what Rickey Henderson brought to the table is stupid. The amount of stolen bases, the amount of leadoff home runs. This guy was a game changer from pitch one every single game. He'd get a leadoff single and you blink and he's on third base. We just went with that complete stolen base record where any current player could steal 50 bases for the next 20 years and still not touch Rickey Henderson's record.
Right. The scary thing with Rickey, people don't appreciate Rickey enough to think that here's a guy that if you were afraid to walk him and you pitched to him, he'd take you out of the yard or take you into the gap. If you let him get on base, he'd steal at least one, if not two bases on you. He wrecked the game plan for every team out the minute he got on base.
Yeah.
You and he beat you in so many ways. It was whether it was his feet, whether it was with his bat. The guy could field and throw a little bit too in his day. He absolutely changed the game, and he was probably the guy in any lineup that they game plan for more than anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rickey Henderson thing, I don't think Rickey gets also enough credit for the defensive player that Rickey Henderson was. He was more than just a guy that would steal second and third base. I mean, obviously, leadoff home run record, 85 or 87 or whatever that is for leadoff home runs. That's never going to be touched again. But let me just read off some. I had them pulled up and then my computer. So give me 1 second. Because I'm going to read off some Frank Robinson stats for you haters on Frank Robinson over there.
I just said we don't hate on him.
I think he's talking to us, Nick.
Actions speak louder than words. You voted for Rickey Henderson.
Oh my goodness gracious!
He said he said he was okay with it.
Let's go.
All right, I did say I was okay with it. I guess I'm not going to get on my soapbox. Rookie of the year, MVP of the American League, MVP of the National League, Manager of the Year. This guy, where are we? 1966, scored 122 runs, led the league. 49 home runs, led the league. 122 RBIs, led the league. Batted .316, led the league. On base .410, led the league. Slugged .637, led the league. This guy dominated both leagues. Has a statue in 2 different cities, for Christ's sakes.
Right. There's probably 50 players in this bracket that Frank Robinson beats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. There's only probably 10, 12, maybe 14 players that are actually going to beat him.
Maybe. But I will say, I will give Rickey Henderson love before we move on. He had 3 seasons of 100+ steals, including 1982 when he had 130, and he played 149 games. So he played 149 games. He stole 130 bags.
Yeah,
which is just insane.
Yeah, the guy he wreaked havoc out there.
Yeah,
and we just couldn't look past that. And I mean, that might be a little bit of generation bias too. There, like to be completely honest, like we didn't see Frank Robinson play, but we saw Rickey Henderson play.
Yeah,
and
loved
the impact he made. So I mean, that was a tough one, but we did go with Rickey. So next one we have Lou Gehrig against Eddie Matthews. We went Iron Horse Lou Gehrig. I mean, Eddie Matthews was great with the Braves, but I mean, he's not going to beat Lou Gehrig.
No.
Eddie Matthews is great too. Eddie Matthews, sorry, real quick. Eddie Matthews had, before he turned 30 years old, he had like 200 and something home runs, close to 300 home runs before he turned 30 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for a guy in that era, just the raw power and hitting ability was pretty damn impressive.
Yeah,
absolutely. And
did we lose Nick?
It ain't a show until I get disconnected.
Show's not complete until we drop Nick.
All right, so here we go. The next one, these two were the absolute polar opposites you can get. We have Nap LaJoy from the 1890s, and we got Clayton Kershaw from, well, hopefully retires because, and we actually kind of argued that Clayton Kershaw probably shouldn't even be on the top 64, but that's our own opinion, whatever. But we went with Nap LaJoy over Clayton Kershaw here because, like Sean said, you said he went to the Cleveland Indians and then they changed their name to like the Cleveland Naps or whatever.
To the Cleveland, and that's not a nickname. Like the actual team name changed to the Cleveland Naps when he went over to Cleveland. Yeah,
I mean, when your team changes your name from being signed or whatever, then I guess you're pretty good. I mean,
the guy's he's no slouch either. I mean, 338 career hitter, 3,243 hits. I mean, led the league 5 times in batting average, including 1901. Now I get it, 1901, but he had 426, and the guy was no slouch.
Right.
Yeah,
and I think he also had the benefit, if you will call it a benefit, of going up against Clayton Kershaw, who, like we had said, maybe not. I don't know. Kershaw had those few years of absolute dominance in prime, but always struggled in the postseason. I don't know. Like to me, and maybe a guy like Curt Schilling should have been on this list over a guy like Clayton Kershaw. Now he was the exact opposite. Really had the postseason dominance and really not so much dominance in the regular season. But I don't know. I was kind of weird with Clayton Kershaw. So I was kind of fine that it was a guy like Nat Troy that we could push.
Absolutely.
Clayton Kershaw is one of those guys who's really got impressive stats, but I feel like he's somebody who's lived off of reputation more than performance for a long time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, are you pulling up stats or no?
Well, yeah, only just for he went that 2011, 12, 13, and 14. So 11, 13, and 14, he wins the Cy Young. 2012, he finished in second place. I mean, that 4-year stretch, all 4 years he led the league in ERA, the National League in ERA. Twice led it in strikeouts, all 4 times led it in whip. Like it was a 4-year stretch of just like, this guy's unbelievable. Yeah. But outside of that, I mean, the first 3 years in the league, he was just kind of a 500, 5-5, then 8-8, then 13-10. Kind of since 2017, he had 18-4. Since then, 9-5, 16-5, 6-2, 10-8. Like it's kind of like a weird career arc.
Yeah, very, very unsteady.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that 4 years was just dominant.
Oh, gross.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on to, we had Stan Musial against Frank Thomas, and sorry, Big Hurt, but Stan the man takes Frank. This one. I mean, Frank's no slouch and probably the biggest human being on the planet, but I mean, but Stan Musial was just, he was in another league.
Yeah. Offensive dominance like you've never, like none of us have ever seen.
Yeah, crazy. Now, this next matchup, this is an interesting one. Johnny Bench, this is to round out this side of the bracket. Johnny Bench against Nolan Ryan here. I mean, we have known Nolan Ryan's stats and all of that stuff, but we went with Johnny Bench here. I mean, probably, or not even probably, he is the best overall catcher to ever play the game.
Yep.
I mean, there's just no ands, ifs, or buts about it.
100%.
I mean, Nolan Ryan, yeah, he did it for 30 years. He has all the records that are untouchable. Like, I get it. But, I mean, we went Johnny Bench here just because he's the best catcher of all time.
And I don't think any of us really had a good fight for Nolan on that one. I think it was clearly Johnny Bench. And
I mean, Nolan Ryan's on my all-time team, but it's just, I got to take
Johnny Bench's first MVP season in 1970. He had 45 home runs. He drove in 148 runs.
Yeah, that was unheard of. Yeah, as a catcher, that was unheard of.
Games. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, crazy. So, so that rounds out that bracket. We got Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson, Pete Rose, Rickey Henderson, Lou Gehrig, Nap LaJoie, Stan Musial, and Johnny Bench moving on. So now we'll go up to the Aaron bracket. The first matchup, we got Hank Aaron against Miguel Cabrera. And again, sorry, Miggy, but Hank Aaron moves on.
Yep.
Pretty easy there. This next one, we kind of went back and forth on because these two are in different eras, but Rogers Hornsby against David Ortiz. And we went with Hornsby over Ortiz here.
The David Ortiz one for... Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think Hornsby has the highest single season batting average. What is it, like 439 or something like that?
Yeah, let me pull it up. Hold on.
It's something. It's something insane, I think.
Yeah, as a Red Sox fan, I love Ortiz. He's a postseason god, and
424
has done stuff that's made of legends. But Hornsby's stats side by side to Ortiz's are just—they're not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah, 424, and he didn't even win MVP that year, which doesn't really make much sense.
That blows my mind.
Crazy.
Yeah. The Ortiz one, just if I could real quick with David Ortiz.
Yeah.
We all love David Ortiz. I mean, we grew up Red Sox fans in the height of the David Ortiz era. And David Ortiz he's on my Mount Rushmore of Boston athletes, not just Red Sox, but like Boston athletes. The era in which he played didn't help. Like David Ortiz almost never really led the league in anything. He had 1 year, let me look it up because I wrote it down. He had 1 year where he led it in total bases or something like that, but never really led the league in home runs. He led it once, 2006. He had 54. Oh, twice with RBI, so I will actually give him that. 148 in 05 and 137 in 2006. Right, but guys, the power, especially because he didn't really contribute much on the field. I mean, he was a DH. He wasn't, to to lead the league once in home runs and to lead the league twice in RBIs. Not taking anything away from him, and he belongs in the Hall of Fame. But like, it's not like his stat page is just littered with him like leading the league in average, leading the league in OBP, leading the league in all kinds of stats. They're great stats, Hall of Fame stats, but it was kind of Rogers Hornsby leads the league in like everything.
Yeah,
from when he
absolutely. Moving on to the next one, we got Mike Trout against Steve Carlton, and this one we unanimously said Steve Carlton here.
Yeah,
I mean, Mike Trout's Mike Trout. We all know Mike Trout, but I mean, Steve Carlton was just dominant, and we still don't know what Mike Trout is, right? I mean, he doesn't win. Like, he sits back and collects his $40 million a year, and that's it. We don't hear from him.
And it's hard. It's hard when you've got a guy who's 30 on that list already. It's like there's so much of his career left. Who knows where he ends up? It's just, it should he be there? Probably, yeah, because he's been that good to this point. But it's hard to compare him to the full career body of work of somebody else when he's only half done.
And especially when that full body of work is 4 Cy Youngs, 2 World Series champion. I mean, it's just that's Steve Carlton was as good as you could get. And we talk about longevity. A guy played for 24 years. Yeah. And again, we talk about the horse. I mean, kicked it off in 1968, and then through 1984 started no less than 31 games.
Yeah.
Insane. I mean, he was mid to high 30s and sometimes reached 40, 41 starts. Yeah. So, animal.
Yeah, crazy. So, yeah, we have Steve Carlton there. And this next matchup's really interesting here. We got Jimmy Fox against Ozzie Smith. And, I mean, we went with Jimmy Fox. I mean, his numbers at a time that power numbers weren't a thing are insane. I mean, no one put up numbers like he did at that time. No one, not even close. And then Ruth came after, and then obviously we know what happened there. But Jimmy Fox over Ozzie Smith there.
And you got Ozzie, who was so heavily slated to the defensive side. Not offensively certainly carried his own, but he was the wizard, not with a bat, with a glove.
Right. Ozzie had to kind of teach himself how to hit, though. I mean, he got to 2,000 hits, but I mean, he played for a while too. Yep. He got himself to the 2,000. I ended up with a 24 something for hits, so certainly nothing to sneeze at.
Nope.
Right.
But yeah, that's a tough matchup for him.
Yep. This next matchup took us a little bit. We got Mickey Mantle against Sandy Koufax. I mean, this was another first round matchup that was like, yikes, what do we do here? And we actually went with Mickey Mantle. We went with the longevity. This is where the longevity really kind of kicked in. Like, there's no doubt that Sandy Koufax mowed down some people during his career. However, was it the first 4 or 5 seasons of his career, he was like 500, and then the last
there was split 4 and 4. Like, his first 4 years were just kind of pedestrian Sandy Koufax, and then the last 4 year dominant. His last year, his 8th year in the league, was an absolute dominating performance, and he's like, I'm in, and then just retired.
And like dominance, not even the proper word for the last 4 years that he was. Like, he was just untouchable. But we did go with Mantle there for that one. Next matchup, we got Roger Clemens against Tris Speaker. I mean, it's Roger Clemens. There's really no debate about that. And then this next one was interesting. This is Pedro Martinez against Josh Gibson. And everybody on this podcast and everybody that listens to this podcast knows how much I love Josh Gibson. He's on my all-time team as a catcher. But I would take 99 and 2000 Pedro every single day on the mound. I mean, and that's who we went with. We went with Pedro in that matchup.
I think the hard thing too is if Josh Gibson, the hard thing was just the Negro League, the numbers just aren't
there.
Clear.
Right.
There's some numbers out there, but it's kind of like whether it's unverified or heard from a source or whatever. Like they're real tough to kind of sink your teeth into.
There's a lot of gaps in them. You can look them up. Like, they're there, but it's like they're all over the place. Like, it says he played like 20 games here and then like 70 here, and like it's they just weren't tracked as well. So it's really hard to see. But
and the reality of it is that 99 2000 Pedro, there's probably nobody in this whole bracket that's going better than like 1 for 5 against him. I don't care who you are in this bracket.
No,
you're not.
Oh, I mean, in
not.
2002 and 2003, Pedro wasn't much to sneeze at either. I mean, 2002 Pedro only went 20-4 with a 2.26 ERA.
Yeah.
So I mean, he had like a 6-year, and now those 2 years was untouchable. But that's 98 through 2002, 2003 was a really good 6-7 year stretch.
Oh, absolutely. So next matchup here, we have Ichiro Suzuki against Mariano Rivera, and we went Ichiro. All we had to do was Google Ichiro versus Mariano, and the first link that pops up is Ichiro taking them deep, and we're like, okay, enough said, moving on. I mean, Ichiro has over 4,000 career hits in Japan and the MLB. If he was here, he would probably make a run at Pete Rose if he was here for his whole career. Single season hit king, absolute cannon in right field.
Yeah, add in the defense, add in the base paths earlier in his career.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, Mariano, greatest closer of all time, but we've talked about it. Bit of an inflated position as a whole closer. You know,
for sure.
I mean, Mariano, dominant, great closer, but like only comes in when his team's leading. You know, again, not to take anything away from him, but you've got a guy like Ichiro that plays every single day. Steps up to the plate in the 8th and 9th when his team's losing and needs a base runner. And all these things, it's just a different kind of, just a different game, you know. And I think Ichiro is as dominant and as nasty as he was. I don't think it's close.
Yeah, Ichiro changed the game every day. Mariano Rivera came in and finished the game 50 times a year. Like it's just, the closer role is definitely an important one, but to Sean's point, it is so overinflated. It's
overinflated when we talk about the historical significance of it.
Sure.
Like it's supremely, I think, like within the day-to-day, like if I'm managing a ball club, I want a really good closer. I want a dominant closer. Like no doubt about that. But like when we're looking in the historic side of like what Mariano did historically, like I don't know, man. I mean, you just gotta take it for what it is. I mean, like he goes in for one inning when his team's winning. He does it very well, but I mean that's what he does.
Right.
Yeah. It's in terms of value and impact, Ichiro provides significantly more of both.
Yeah, absolutely. So that rounds out our Aaron bracket, the top. So we got Hank Aaron, Rogers Hornsby, Steve Carlton, Jimmy Fox, Mickey Mantle, Roger Clemens, Pedro Martinez, and Ichiro all moving on. So last one for the first round for today, we got the Ty Cobb bracket. So we got Ty Cobb against A-Rod and sorry, A-Rod, it's Ty Cobb. I mean
that's the most satisfying loss of the entire bracket.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Ty Cobb moves on. No ands, ifs, or buts. Nope. Second one, we got Ernie Banks against Warren Spahn. We went Ernie Banks here. Ernie Banks changed the whole entire shortstop position. You know, shortstop wasn't really a power position until Ernie Banks came and slugged over 500 home runs in his career. Mr. Cub, I mean, we really didn't have a debate with that. I mean, Warren Spahn wasn't a slouch. Don't get us wrong. Like, great pitcher.
Yeah, but you talk about changing the game. Changing the game. Yeah, I mean, it's sorry.
I mean, Warren Spahn still holds most of the pitching records for the Braves, but I mean, it's because he did it for 85 years. But, give or take. But,
and I didn't even throw in I don't know what I had a brain fart for. I didn't even throw in my favorite Ty Cobb stat when we just mentioned and breezed through him. He stole home like 32 times in his career.
It's crazy.
Which is just crazy.
Yeah.
Like stealing home once is wild. He did it 31 more times after that.
Right.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And A-Rod just had to slap a ball out of Bronson Arroyo's glove to get to first.
Yeah, but he was running.
Right. So next matchup here, we got Joe DiMaggio against Derek Jeter. You know, battle of the Yankees for that generation. But we went with the 56-game hit streak with Joe DiMaggio here over Derek Jeter. It is what it is. I know when we released the bracket, we were talking about the girls they both pulled and like all that stuff. Like it was hilarious, but
they're the same guy. You know, they were the face of the Yankees doing all the same stuff. The most eligible bachelor in New York and all those things.
Yeah, for sure. But we went Joe DiMaggio there. Next one here, we got Joe Morgan against Reggie Jackson. So we went with Joe Morgan here. His stats during his Big Red Machine years are just stupid. For again, a guy that changed what second base looks like.
Yeah. And the thing, most people only think of him as the guy on ESPN and kind of forget about the baseball career he did have, because for a lot of people, he came into broadcasting while our whole generation started watching. We never saw him play, but my God, was he so good at second base?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Reggie Jackson wasn't a slouch. I mean, Mr. October, like what he did in the playoffs is unreal. But I mean, we talked about, like, we all know his backstory, and like, look at me.
Yeah, another guy with a super punchable face.
yeah, right. I mean, no surprise he was a Yankee. And then next matchup, we got Barry Bonds against Albert Pujols. Now, I mean, we went Barry Bonds here, but let's give Albert Pujols his due here. I mean, this guy has done it for 20 years, still doing it. I mean, he's over 600 home runs. Yeah,
3,000 hits and 6. It's 4 guys to do that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, very unfortunate he's going against Barry Bonds here, because that's another. I mean, Maddox, Pujols, and Frank Robinson going out in the first round here, like,
yeah,
those ones hurt, and that's another one that really hurts. But you can't never leave Barry Bonds out.
No, but I mean, Pujols might be a top 10 hitter of all time, and he gets booted in the first round.
Right.
And there's only a few guys in that bracket that are going to beat him. It just so happens he faced one in the first round.
Yeah, and this was completely random. We swear, like, it's just insane. But
that one hurts me, because I was firmly in the Pujols camp until he pulled Barry.
Yeah, for sure. And then we have Carl Yastrzemski against Christy Mathewson. And we actually talked about this one for a little bit, because, I mean, Christy Mathewson back in the day, first class Hall of Famer. The numbers he have is insane, but
way better than I thought.
Yes.
But when we started this, it was way closer than I thought.
Yep.
But we ended up going with Yaz because of the Triple Crown. I mean, before Miggy finally got the Triple Crown, Yaz was the last one to do it, and the numbers he put up. And, yeah, I mean, just the silly stats.
I mean, you have, and we're not just talking like Red Sox fans. You're talking like guys like Rod Carew and other Hall of Fame players, Harmon Killebrew. Like, these Hall of Fame players that played in that era and played against Carl Yastrzemski, like, to their dying day, will tell you that the greatest season they ever saw was Carl Yastrzemski in 1967. Like, carried that Red Sox team from start to finish. Not just carried them for a month through the postseason, like, carried them from April until the World Series when they lost, but carried that baseball team with his Triple Crown season. And those are Hall of Fame baseball players telling you that. Like, that carries a lot of weight for me.
And then even outside of 1967, he had a ton of incredible years.
Oh, he was,
ton
absolutely.
But so then, Ken says no Triple Crown. Killebrew tied with Yaz in 67. I didn't know that. Was that the year he won the Triple Crown, or no? I don't know that.
Yeah,
not sure. We'll have to look it up.
Well, I'll look up. I mean, he hit 326 with 44 homers and 121 RBIs. I don't have Harmon's number right in front of me.
Interesting. Well, get on that, and I'll go on to the next matchup.
Keep going. I'll pull up Killebrew.
So we got Randy Johnson against Honus Wagner here. We kind of,
44 home runs.
Was it 44?
They both had 44 home runs.
Yep.
Yeah. So how is he credited with a Triple Crown then, if he didn't lead the league? I mean, he tied for the lead, but
yeah, I don't know. That's a good. I don't know. Why has that never been talked about?
I don't know. I'm gonna dig deeper into that to see if that's a true Triple Crown then, because I thought you had to lead the league by yourself and all. But
I mean, I
guess he still is in the league for homers. He's just tied with somebody else.
I guess it was just an assumption that we made but
whatever. Yeah. Well, either way, Yaz is moving on over Christy Mathewson. So, but yeah, that's interesting. So, thanks for that, Ken. Oh, and Brian said he played the wall great too. I mean,
He did.
Oh yeah, well, he
right?
won how many Gold Gloves? 7.
Yeah. And we talked
7
about
Gold
the
Gloves.
fact that he came after Ted Williams. You know what I mean? Like those are big shoes to fill in left
Oh,
field.
dude, Ted
For
Williams.
sure.
After Ted Williams leaves.
Now
you know,
I
like,
know Ted Williams set fourth. It was Ted Williams, then Yaz, then essentially Jim Rice, and like Manny. Like that was like your left field succession line in Boston. For so
Mike
long.
Greenwell? Come on, dude. Give Greenwell his due
No,
there. Come
I mean,
on.
a few years, obviously, but like that's kind of your like left field succession, and then Jason Bay, of course. You got to fill.
Oh, right, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so
But that's
looking it up, Yaz does get credit for Triple Crown that year. He did finish tied with Killebrew in home runs. That was apparently well documented at the time that he won it. But he gets credit for the Triple Crown because he was in the league leading spot, even though he wasn't alone.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's good to know. Learn something new every day there. Nice. All right. So, yeah, Randy Johnson against Honus Wagner. I mean, we kind of played this one like theoretical. Who would win in a matchup if Randy Johnson pitched against Honus Wagner? And we went Randy Johnson here. I mean, Honus Wagner's stats were kind of silly again for that age, that era. But we've kind of joked about before, like you see like the people, like the old time photos and the field that they're standing on, dude. And it looks like there's molehills everywhere. Like
everywhere.
I could hit 400 in that league at that time. And probably not, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep. And Randy Johnson's body of work is just so good.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, was it the 4 straight years of a Cy Young Award?
Right.
In Arizona?
Yeah, in the 4 straight years, in those 4 years, the lowest strikeouts was 334. That's the lowest.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, dude. And then throw him in like the 1900s. Yeah, good luck, dude. He's probably got 600
You
strikeouts.
think Honus Wagner has seen a slider like that when he was hitting 424?
No. And oh, by the way, Randy Johnson was pitching during the time period of steroids and a juiced ball. So those are pretty good numbers.
Yeah. Crazy. And then to round out our first round bracket here, we got the Battle of the Bobs. We got Bob Gibson against Bob Feller. And, you know, we've talked about Bob Gibson a ton on this podcast as well. And we went Gibson here. Feller was no slouch. I mean, Feller was probably one of the first really, really hard throwers. But Gibson's dominance and his tenacity on the mound is unmatched. I mean,
he broke baseball.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He broke it.
Absolutely.
When you're so good, they change the rules. I think you're going to get a first round win.
Yeah.
They didn't just change the rules; they changed the layout of the field.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. Insane.
Like it wasn't just like a rule that they put in; like they had to raise the mound or lower the mound. Whatever
lower the mound. Yeah, they had to lower it.
Broke it because of Bob Gibson.
All 30 stadiums had to be altered for this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
So to recap that one real quick, we got thanks, Brian. Yeah, I like the ones we came out with, and you know we have good arguments of who we picked and why we picked them, but I mean we had a blast.
It's well documented that I didn't agree with a few either, Brian. So
yeah,
I lost out on a couple of them as well.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time going back and forth on these, and there's a few that we all had different opinions on. Yeah. This was not completely unanimous. There was definitely some debate.
So just to round out that one, we got Ty Cobb, Ernie Banks, Joe DiMaggio, Joe Morgan, Barry Bonds, Carl Yastrzemski, Randy Johnson, and Bob Gibson. So we will have an interesting second round here. I'll just go over those matchups real quick. We got Babe Ruth against Cy Young, Griffey against Schmidt. This one's going to be crazy. Ted Williams against Roberto Clemente, Walter Johnson against Gwynn, Mays against Robinson, Rose against Henderson, Lou Gehrig against LaJoy, Musial against Bench, then Hank Aaron against Hornsby, Steve Carlton against Fox, Mickey Mantle versus Clemens, Pedro versus Ichiro. Then the last one for matchup for round 2, Ty Cobb, Ernie Banks, Joe Morgan, Joe DiMaggio, Barry Bonds and Carl Yastrzemski, and then Randy Johnson against Bob Gibson. So those will be our second round matchups. And I do have a scoring update for our first round. So we got Ken with 20 points. We got Josh Thibodeau with 23 points. We got Scott with 24. Morgan with also 24. And in an early lead, we got Stacy with 25. So good luck to you guys in the next round. And
now it makes me wonder, does Stacy have the lead because Nick is voting scared for fear of what he'll get from her? I'm just saying.
No, it has nothing to do
I'm
with me.
just asking the question.
Listen, no. Okay. We made these picks even before we got the bracket, so lay off me. All right, so here we go. We're gonna move on to the rounding third. We're gonna throw out the question for this week, and then I'll throw it out on Facebook tomorrow. You guys can answer it. Since baseball, we all know, is still in the lockout, would you rather prefer watching college or minor league? And then what would be your favorite team to watch? So that is going to be our rounding third question. Oh my goodness, excuse me, for this week. And really interested to hear your answers on that. What about you guys? What would you prefer here? I mean, I know we kind of just talked about college baseball and we're kind of amped about it, but I mean, that's clearly my pick right now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'm a college baseball guy, and it's because it's the raw passion of the game. These are guys that are, they're not, well, maybe they are getting paid now, but they weren't getting paid to play. They were, they're fighting and clawing for, school pride and the student section and to get to the next level. And I love the way the game is played at the college level. It's fast, it's aggressive, they're fighting, they're passionate. I just think it's a better product.
I love college ball too. I don't know if it's a better product. I think what we're running, like minor league ball, is so difficult to find. Like it's not really on TV. Like college baseball was so, like, the past 2 years, especially with this year being like ESPN Plus, it's kind of everywhere. Like any night you want to watch college baseball, you could find a college baseball game. Like it's not hard to find. Like minor league ball is kind of difficult to find. Like Nesson every now and again will throw on like the Woo Sox now, but like it's just kind of difficult to find. If it was as accessible as college ball, I might like these minor league kids are legit. Like they are, especially you get to like the AA, the AAA, obviously those guys are one, step away. I love college ball. All college athletics to me is awesome, especially the top tier Division I college athletics. Those guys are so much fun to watch. But it's like 1A, 1B for me if minor league ball was easy to find, but it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you right now. I mean, like I've said before, like being from Maine, like I never really got into the college scene until I came down south. And I mean, like I'm hooked, man. Everything. Like I'm going to women's basketball games. Like I'm going to the ACC tournament next weekend. Like, dude, I'm so pumped, dude. It's like, and then I mean, Tommy Tank's going out and hitting 9 bombs in the first 8 games. Like I'm trying to scalp tickets and buy some to get me in the stadium now. Like,
that doesn't hurt.
We got a fair amount of college fans here. We got Ken's a Longhorn fan. Michael, fan of Notre Dame. Got another Longhorn fan, Brian. So a lot of college ball fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, in college there are some unreal uniforms in college baseball too.
Oh, there
so
are
nice uniforms.
Yeah.
So that doesn't hurt either.
Yeah,
I always grew up a Seminoles fan, and then that's why I went there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I'll throw that question out. You guys can comment on it if you want to, and then we'll throw out maybe a next one next week. So, yeah. So our next segment here, heading home, we got a little bit to cover here. This first one is insane. If you haven't heard this or heard what happened,
I almost don't even want to like talk about it and like give it any credence. You know what I mean?
I mean,
like it's
I want his name to go away.
I agree with you. Like, I mean, and it's unreal. So the Red Sox released this kid.
Go ahead, Nick. Yeah.
You go, Sean. Go ahead. I've been talking.
I was just going to say, Red Sox released this piece of shit in the minor leagues for putting up these racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic litany of tweets on Twitter attacking Chaim Bloom for being Jewish and all this nonsense that really doesn't deserve any credence. But the Red Sox, he admitted it too. He's like, yeah, I wasn't hacked. Like, I'm a racist. Like, it is what it is. And the Sox were like, later.
Yeah.
And they cut him. And he's probably, hopefully, good Christ, hopefully, out of the game, and we won't have to hear his name again. And it was disgusting. It was so bad. It was so bad.
Yeah.
I got nothing else. I mean, that's that's it in a nutshell.
What's scary though is that when you think about what this guy just did, how many other guys are out there in baseball or other professional sports that feel like he does? I'll never understand, the people that feel that way, think that way, can say those sorts of things, but he's not alone. He's just so happened to be the guy that decided to do it publicly.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's I have no use for any of that shit, like but to come out and just so kind of nonchalantly and callously just kind of be proud of it.
Yeah, it's silly.
Kind of took it to a whole nother level that really aggravated me. So
the whole thing that really upsets me the most is like my only dream was to play professional baseball, to get a shot at playing professional baseball. And this guy just throws it out like a bag of trash. Just doesn't care. Like, he knows when he puts this on Twitter that he's done. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. I just like it pisses me off. There's nothing between the ears.
No, he throws it away because Chaim Bloom, a guy he probably has never met, is Jewish. Like, okay,
whatever, man. Go live your life as a piece of shit somewhere. I'm never going to give you another thought, so I don't care.
Yeah. He'll go back to your trailer in the deep woods and do your thing.
Yeah. So we'll move on from that since, we got news today that Derek Jeter just up and leaves the Marlins. It said that he did not agree with the direction that the Marlins are going, which we're assuming that he wants to spend money, and the organization's like, meh.
Yeah, some reports that got published kind of after the news broke were saying that it was basically that. So for those that don't understand kind of how Derek Jeter got involved with the Marlins, he was actually brought on as the CEO of the team and given a 4% ownership stake of the team to kind of draw him in. He was on the 4th year of a 5-year contract. They had made some good progress. They had signed some free agents this offseason. He wanted to go bigger. The rest of the ownership group did not want to, and he decided at this point it was best for him to step away. The feeling in the building is that, he thinks they're all, kind of cheap and trying to live off the revenue sharing money. They feel like he's a New York guy who's got, big budget taste in a market that can't afford it. And ultimately they agreed that it was not the right, kind of arrangement for anybody anymore. So he gives back his ownership of the team. He walks away and they start over.
I find the timing of it a bit curious. When we're meeting for the 8th straight day and it's pretty out there from the players' perspective that they're not getting good faith negotiation from the owners. And here we go, a former player at heart who's now a granted minority, but still has an ownership stake in a team. I don't know. Maybe there's nothing to that. Maybe that's my tinfoil, but I just find the timing of it a bit curious. And I also think it's a bit for the Marlins to come out and be like, oh, and I don't know if they said this word for word, but the idea that he's got big market, New York, big market taste. Like, I'm pretty sure the first thing he did when he got there was trade away the Stanton contract. Now, granted, he sent him to the Yankees, but right. I mean, that's kind of the first thing that Derek Jeter did was to get that payroll nightmare off of his payroll so that he can start fresh.
Yep.
Like, he said he wanted 5 years. He was there for 5 years. He clearly didn't finish what he started. Like, why not just – he knows how to win. Now, I'm not saying just because you're a winning player means you're definitely going to win a title as an owner. I'm not saying that. But, you got to let him try it at least somewhat his way before you shoo him out the door. That's why I was more thinking the timing of it with I think that's more of kind of like a cover. And the more of it is just like, I don't want to put my name as an owner with the way that this is going. I don't think he likes the way that the owners are handling this. I don't think he wants his name associated with it. And I think the timing of it is very peculiar of today, him being like, you know what, we mutually agreed to part ways.
And that team, when he went there, was good. They had Christian Yelich. They had Marcelo Ozuna.
Right.
Not good. They had talented players. You're right.
And he dumped all the payroll.
Yeah, Real Muto was probably the best catcher at the time. And then, Ozuna and Stanton. D. Gordon was still there. Jose Fernandez. R.I.P. in peace. But we've talked about that before. After he passed, that team just wasn't quite the same. But the Marlins have had talent there. But I think you're right. It was just he wasn't given I'd have just lost my train of thought there. He wasn't given the rights to like do kind of hit his way. You're right. So, yeah, I mean, I think there was a report saying that ESPN or Fox is trying to lure him into the studio. So we'll see if that happens or not.
I don't see Jeter as that kind of guy.
I don't really either, but I mean, Mariah Carey's single again, right? You can just go there. Anyways,
wow.
So yeah, the last quick thing that we have tonight is if the lockout stays up, Bobby Bonilla is going to be the only player paid this year. So so we'll wish him a happy early Bobby Bonilla Day, and we'll celebrate that day when that comes. But
goddamn Mets.
He's slated to make the most money this year.
What's amazing though is when you look at a lot of those big contracts that have been signed the last couple of years, there's so many guys that are doing exactly what he did, spreading that money out for 10, 15 years. It's the only way the teams can afford it, and for them it's a great deal because you're getting basically an annuity stream for the next 10, 15 years of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, all right. So that's gonna wrap it up for tonight. So we will go over the second round matchups next week, and then give you all a score update for that going forward, and then we will cover other topics as the CBA goes on for another week with no progress, and we miss a month of baseball, and then some college updates there. But so before we go, just like, subscribe, share. Thanks for all the participation in this episode, guys. Hope you had fun. And we will see you next Monday.
Yeah. Thanks, I mean, I tell you, Nick, real quick, I think within the next 48 hours is going to tell us how serious the two sides are about playing baseball. I think they said today is the deadline, but let's say they're working on it. Let's say they come up with something tomorrow or Wednesday. I have a hard time believing we're going to miss opening day.
Yeah.
If we continue on for another week and a half, then that tells us just how unserious they were about wanting to resolve this. So
I agree.
We'll see.
So we will see what happens. Anything else, fellas?
No,
nope. Good?
I'm good. That's it.
All right. See you next Monday.